Walk onto almost any major state university campus today, and you're stepping into a sprawling city of research labs, engineering facilities, and tens of thousands of students. It feels like an inevitable part of the American landscape. But in the 1850s, higher education was a closed system. College was an exclusive privilege, reserved almost strictly for the wealthy elite. For those who could afford tuition, the curriculum offered little in the way of practical application. Admissions required proficiency in dead languages like ancient Greek and Latin, with a focus on classical arts and philosophy. This created a gap in the workforce of a young nation entering the Industrial Revolution. The United States needed people who could build bridges and optimize harvests, but it had zero educational infrastructure for the industrial classes. At the time, if you wanted to become an engineer, your best option was to attend the military academy at West Point to learn fortress construction. Early attempts to fix this were gridlocked. Southern legislators actively blocked federal attempts to create publicly funded agricultural and working-class colleges, refusing to support any national education systems. And that political wall collapsed in 1861. When the Southern states seceded at the start of the Civil War, their representatives vacated Congress, clearing the way to legislatively shift the focus of American higher education toward industrial and agricultural science. Representative Justin Smith Morrill stepped into this opening. He proposed that the federal government fund a new system of colleges designed specifically to educate the working class. This map illustrates the financial mechanism President Lincoln signed into law with the Morrill Act of 1862. The federal government gave each loyal state 30,000 acres of federal land for every senator and representative they had in Congress. States then sold this land to generate the cash to build their new schools. Funding this expansion required 10.7 million acres of land, which the government partitioned from 245 tribal nations through lopsided treaties and violent conflict. These 80,000 individual parcels were then redistributed to the states for sale. If a state lacked enough federal land within its own borders, it was issued scrip, a legal voucher to claim and sell federal land in other states. New York, for example, selected valuable timberland in Wisconsin, funneling the profits directly into the endowment vault of Cornell University. Through the systematic sale of these territories, the law generated massive collective endowments. Millions of dollars poured into state treasuries, providing the capital to physically build the nation's pioneer state colleges. The initial down payment for the American public university system was a vast ledger of expropriated indigenous land. With the land sold and the endowment secured, the newly established schools had to fulfill a strict federal mandate. The law legally required these institutions to teach agriculture and the mechanic arts. On campuses, classical textbooks began sharing space with soil samples, mechanical blueprints, and heavy machinery as the schools shifted their focus to applied sciences. Students were now trained in industrial fabrication. Instead of analyzing classical philosophy, they stood on workshop floors operating complex mechanical built systems and heavy iron lathes. This hands-on training turned state colleges into active laboratories. They became engines of applied science that directly fueled the nation's industrial output. This curriculum pivot established a new purpose for a college degree, a practical tool for industrial labor and national production. As these colleges matured, their role expanded from teaching to active discovery. In 1887, Congress passed the Hatch Act, providing annual federal funds to set up agricultural experiment stations and push universities into the business of scientific research. In 1890, the government addressed racial exclusion. Because Southern states barred Black students from attending public institutions, the Second Morrill Act forced those states to either integrate their admissions or build separate land-grant schools for Black students. The Southern states chose to remain segregated, but the law directed guaranteed federal funding toward the expansion of historically Black colleges and universities. These institutions provided higher education and agricultural training to thousands of African Americans who were otherwise excluded from the system. The system expanded again in 1994 when Congress incorporated tribal colleges into the land-grant framework, a legislative addition that connected these institutions to the same legal system built on the original 1862 land grab. This chart compares the scale of engineering graduates between rival nations at the turn of the 20th century. By 1911, the United States was graduating 3,000 engineers a year, easily surging past Germany's output of 1,800. The American Public University was a manufactured invention, a deliberate engine designed to industrialize a young nation and expand who could access the technical tools of the future.